The station for news and talk.
I'm speechless.
KVNU 610 AM and 102.1 FM.
KVNU News Time is 5:05. I'm Bill Walter with this news update brought to you by Adams Wealth Advisors. After an embarrassing reversal of a December vote on 2022 salary levels for elected officials, the members of the Cache County Council are cautiously proceeding at a snail's pace to address that issue. At the first public meeting of the council in 2022 on Tuesday, the members of the council voted to set a public hearing on the salary issue at their next meeting on January 25th. Under state law, the council will not be free to vote again on the salary issue until after that public hearing is conducted. The news of the need for that do-over was not accepted gracefully by all members of the council. Council member Gordon Zillis said he was tired of talking about officials' salaries at meeting after meeting and asked County Attorney John Luthi whether an additional public hearing was really necessary. After Luthi confirmed the need for a separate public hearing on the salary issue at Tuesday's meeting, Zillis made a motion setting that hearing for January 25th. At their previous December 14th meeting, the members of the council had approved salary levels for themselves and other elected officials that had been recommended by the County Compensation Committee earlier that day. Another vote on the salary issue could take place at the council's next meeting on January 25th or a subsequent gathering on February 8th. KVNU News Time is 5:06. KVNU weather for tonight, partly cloudy this evening, then mostly cloudy. Hazy this evening, then patchy fog after midnight, low near 20. Partly cloudy, then clearing on Friday, patchy morning fog, high in the lower 30s. Partly sunny, around 30 degrees on Saturday. It's been to 34. It's 31 right now at KVNU. KVNU weather brought to you by Mount Logan Laundry, located at 1st East, 7th South in Brigham City, and 5th East, 9th North in Logan, the cleanest spot in town, Mount Logan Laundry.
Adams Wealth Advisors' entire team says, thank you, Cache Valley, for voting them the best financial planner in the Best of Northern Utah competition. Honesty and integrity is the hallmark of Adams Wealth Advisors. Let them earn your trust today.
This is Craig Adams. At Adams Wealth Advisors, we are here to help you receive peace of mind, whether you've done a lot of planning or a little planning. Count on our team at Adams Wealth Advisors for honesty, professionalism, and integrity.
Visit adamswealthadvisors.com or call 752-1702 to schedule a time with an advisor today. Please see adamswealthadvisors.com for more information on these recent awards.
KVNU News Time is 5:08. A strange phenomenon was reported on by many individuals who saw it along the Blacksmith Fork River east of Hiram last week after a warm spell caused a brief rapid snowmelt. It appeared to be about a 5 to 6 foot wall of ice that had formed on each bank of the river, especially on the lower end near the mouth of Blacksmith Fork Canyon. On KVNU's For the People program on Tuesday, Dr. Patrick Belmont of the Watershed Science Department in USU's College of Natural Resources talked about what took place.
So in this case, to the best of what I can tell has happened here is probably an ice jam further up in the Blacksmith Fork broke, and that would have sent a big rush of water downstream, and that's how the big ice blocks end up getting deposited. And the ice kind of pushes itself up onto the banks, and it looks like a beautiful mess, as you saw.
Dr. Belmont said, although it may be more rare on the Blacksmith Fork, it occurs quite a bit this time of year on many other rivers. When it comes to our rivers and reservoirs, he said that things are looking better for now.
You know, they're doing okay. You're right that our snowpack is pretty high. It's above average conditions, but we're still not out of the drought. We're actually still in what is considered a severe drought condition right now. We're going to need a lot more snow yet this winter to pull ourselves out of that drought.
He said so many of our reservoirs are so low right now, with many of them only 25 to 30% full. He says it will take several years of good snow to refill those to normal levels. And BYU has banned protests and other demonstrations on Y Mountain as part of a recently approved policy update citing safety concerns. The updated demonstration policy was approved December of last year and listed multiple locations where protests and demonstrations were not permitted. KUTV reports a release posted to byu.edu cited locations near minors and areas where safety may be a concern. Included in the list were university-owned portions of Y Mountain. The updated policy comes following the outlining of the Y on the mountainside in rainbow colors. The same day, students at the university plan to show support for LGBTQ plus students at the school. Bradley Talbot, a graduate of BYU and former organizer of the group Color the Campus, said the change is specifically to target the lighting of the Y in rainbow colors. Last year, a BYU student confronted a group of people who were drawing pro-LGBTQ chalk art on a sidewalk on campus. Campus officials investigated the incident. Shortly after, the university confirmed the student who used a gay slur was no longer a student. In the updated policy, university leaders said that although university property is not a public forum, the school does allow responsible and safe demonstrations by current students and employees. The policy went on to explain that demonstration should be consistent with BYU's faith-based mission, among other requirements. KVNU News Time is 5:11. For more details on these and other stories, visit CacheValleyDaily.com.
Get your news from KVNU 610 AM and 102.1 FM.
It's the winter weekend everyone loves, Bear Lake's Monster Winter Fest. January 21st through the 23rd. Go to bearlake.org for details on events, plus hotel and lodging deals. Come up for a weekend of food and tons of fun as hundreds of people brave the icy cold waters of Bear Lake for the Monster Polar Plunge. There's a chili cook-off, cardboard boat regatta, fun run, and Cisco Disco fishing tournament. Go to bearlake.org for all the info and lodging specials. The Monster Winterfest, January 21st through the 23rd in Bear Lake.
Coming up on the Friday edition of the Clay Travis and Buck Sexton Show, we'll be joined by Molly Hemingway of The Federalist on what's going on with election integrity, what's real, what's not, how do we protect the next election, plus Ronna McDaniel, chairman of the RNC. And Clay, what else?
We'll break down the huge decision from the Supreme Court that came down in the final half hour of the show on Thursday, saying that Biden's mandate for the vaccine was unconstitutional. It's going to be a great one.
10 to 1 on News Talk KVNU 102 FM and 610 AM.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have arrived in Philadelphia. Local time is 3:05 p.m. and the temperature is 67 degrees. At this time, you are now free to use your cellular devices.
You know that feeling when you get to turn your phone on after the plane lands? You can have that feeling every time you drive. Make sure your cell phone is stowed away whenever you are behind the wheel.
Visit StopTextStopWrecks.org. A message brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, Project Yellow Light, and the Ad Council.
Technology can make our lives more fun, but when tech is used for cyberbullying, children's lives can be damaged. Peter and Amanda Como found good communication protects their kids.
I would suggest go to jw.org. The resources there are just practical.
Their 16-year-old son picked up tips to help if he was bullied.
Oh, you could use humor. You could just not listen. It'll dissolve the situation.
To find more tips and tools to protect your child from cyberbullying, look to stopbullying.gov or search bullying on jw.org.
Welcome back to KVNU's For the People, hour 2 of today's show, Thursday, January 13th. Legislative session kicking off in just a few days. This used to be a tradition. The legislature would kick off on Tuesday, work through the week, and then have a second short week in which, due to Martin Luther King, I can't talk today. Bill, just take it from here. I'm going home. The Martin Luther King Jr. holiday.
There you go. There you got it.
they got frustrated about that, the loss of having 2 short weeks kicking off this 45-day session. So they moved the start date. So now they will start on the Tuesday after Martin Luther King Jr. Day each and every year, which means instead of ending mid-March, they go to the second to last week of March. And that's about how long they'll be taking to meddle with our lives in various ways. A couple of things. Every year there's a big starting off post, and it usually is an eye-popping number. Lawmakers open, we haven't seen it yet, but last year I remember lawmakers opened a record-setting 1,700 bill files. And the reaction, of course, every time is, and keep in mind, this is me defending them for a bit here, because I'm going to be very critical, I think, of the legislature throughout this session. I'm not a fan. It's not a Utah thing. This is tragically happening all over the country, red and blue states alike. But I'm not a fan of the nationalization of state legislatures. And that, I'm afraid, is going to be popping up a lot in this hyper-political environment we're in, even here in Utah. And it's unfortunate because it, 1, wastes everyone's time, 2, does nothing productive at all as far as changing anything here in Utah, because the national issues are exactly that, national issues. So legislature spending a lot of time on hot-button political issues they'll never really get a chance to weigh in on is, to me, similar to back in 2010, a mayoral debate in Logan. Tyler Riggs and I co-moderating the event for KVNU, and the crowd livid with us both when that event ended because we didn't ask the challenger and incumbent candidates for mayor of Logan City how they felt about the federal health care reform debate and bill, whether they'd vote for it. The mayor of Logan City is never going to be asked to vote on such a thing, ever. Why are we not asking them about Logan City issues? It's the job they're running for. Very frustrating event at the time. Unfortunately, this trend has only continued, and it's now invaded our legislature as well. So I'm prepared. I'm prepared to be irritated by several things throughout the legislative session because our lawmakers should be doing the state's business. I get that it's fun to virtue signal and do a performative dance via sponsored legislation. Unfortunately, one of our own here in Cache Valley seems to have caught this bug a little bit. It's a waste of time. It really is. And unfortunately, money, taxpayer money. So with that in mind, I'm about to defend them. You're going to see this article come out. It's going to be one of the statewide news organizations, and it's going to be shocking. It's going to be a shocking number. It's going to set another record, I would guess. Maybe. Maybe not. But last year, I remember the headline was, I've got it here in front of me, lawmakers to begin session with a record number of bill files. 1,700 plus was the number last year. That's scary. I get that. 1,700 bills, that's 1,700, this is often how people will react to it. 1,700 new laws, this is out of hand. So just a couple of things to understand going into this legislative session. First off, of those 1,700 bill files opened, less than 500 actually got debate or passage in the legislative session in 2021. Of those 500, only 65 were actually adding something new to statute. Now, that's still a lot, in my opinion. It's not necessarily 65 new laws, but 65 of the 500 or so bills passed, of the 1,700 bills proposed in the legislative session in 2021, 65 of them added something new to statute. That doesn't mean a new law. In one case, for example, a bill added a clarifying phrase to some real estate law that was causing some confusion when it came to what could and couldn't happen when a city decided last minute to change a layout of a street. who at that point goes and talks to the city, and who from the city is authorized to sign off on a developer's adjustment to that change. That's not really a new law. That's actually just clarifying statute for legislative intent. I.e., the legislature knew what they intended to say. What they wrote wasn't that clear, and it was causing confusion. They fixed it. So 65 bills did that. The remainder of the, say, 450 bills that passed were actually either removing something old and unnecessary or contradictory or confusing from statute, clarifying a connection between this bill and that bill. One bill was actually repealing a set of 50 portions or 50 phrases and lines of statute in Utah code for a provision that was passed that ended up being a mistake, a bad idea, and they removed it. So all I'm trying to say here is when you see this headline that a whopping, I wouldn't be surprised if it's 2,000 bill files opened this year, intended bills, and make no mistake about it. The opening a bill file is a lawmaker saying, I intend to pass this bill, try and get this bill passed. But again, fewer than half will actually get debate or survive a committee hearing, and less than a third of that half will actually be passed in the end. So keep that in mind as you see those scary headlines. That said, we're starting to get an idea of what the legislature is going to do this year. We've got a list of now about 150 bills that have been made public. This will quadruple over the weekend, and it gives you an idea of where lawmakers are coming from. We also have, this was strange. It was basically a PowerPoint with a lot of buzzwords on it. So I'm not sure what the intent was of this, but it was still interesting. It was a list of priorities from the Utah House of Representatives, the items that they believe are the most pressing issues of the 2022 legislative session. Topping that list, though they don't spell it out this way, topping that list is spending a boatload of federal money. Taxpayer money that's coming through federal funding mechanisms, both through the American Rescue Act, which there's still some of that Utah lawmakers have to put to use. That will go on until 2023, by the way. That could go to child care, social services, a bunch of different things. And then, of course, the passage of the gigantic infrastructure bill at the federal level. That money, lawmakers have to decide where. Some of that money is decided. Some of that money, the federal government, Congress said, we want you to spend it on this. The only decision is for the states is how fast or slowly you spend that. But there's a lot of other money in that infrastructure bill in which there are fewer strings attached. Congress said, here's a good chunk of money based on population or need, and you can decide where it goes. Well, one of the things Utah lawmakers are going to have to decide with some of this infrastructure money is, again, an issue of prioritization. So think of it this way. I don't know the exact dollar amounts. We'll see that as the budget starts to take shape and we actually see what lawmakers plan to use this year. Again, with both of the infrastructure bill and the Biden administration's American Rescue Act passed last spring, they have a window of time to spend it. They don't have to spend it all at once. And so we'll see as the budget takes shape in the legislative process how much lawmakers plan to use of that federal money this year. But there's going to be a lot of it, and so they're going to have to nail that down fairly early on so they can get on to the regular budgeting process, which is going to be lengthy for other reasons this year, mainly because they have a lot of state revenue, more than they expected. And so appropriations is going to take a long time. So that's all going to be in the first couple of weeks. We'll start to see exact numbers on that. But until then, think of it this way. Say the legislature is going to get $500 million to use for, quote, transportation in this infrastructure bill. And again, I don't know the exact amount. I think it will be roughly in that arena. But so they've got $500 million. They have 3 years to spend it or lose it. And they will spend every dollar. Utah needs that money. We're so behind on infrastructure. It's ask anyone at the city level. The state has underfunded infrastructure, and the state admits it. Lawmakers actually kind of confessed to this in their own reaction to the passage of the federal bill by way of saying, oh, thank you, to the congressional representatives who voted for it. But still, that money, they have 3 years to spend it. They've got to spend it carefully. And so one of the questions Utah lawmakers will be trying to answer is, and right now they're surveying on this as well. You may have gotten one of these if you're a registered Republican, at least from your House representative. But the question is, so you've got all this money and you're trying to decide where it goes. Do you spend a lot of it on roads right now? Or do you spend a lot of it on beefing up public transportation, knowing that, you're going? So the state has to look ahead and they have to say, okay, with population growth projected what it is, public transportation is going to be a huge part of the future here in Utah. And the state has consistently not had the money to really do much about that. So, for example, Senate President Stuart Adams just today said he thinks one of the priorities should be speeding up UTA's Frontrunner service and their light rail trains and even bus services so that there are more stops, quicker routes to make it more enticing for people to use public transit to get to work Monday through Friday. They're going to need a faster system. And one of the potential proposed solutions here is to do something called double tracking with Frontrunner. Personally, I think that and this is just me selfishly, I think they should take some of this money and speed up the timeline for getting Frontrunner all the way up to Box Elder County. Right now it stops in Ogden at 24th Street. So at the Union Station building there. So I'd like to see them go further north, and then I'd like to see them figure out a way to connect Cache Valley to that Frontrunner system in a convenient way. And I think you'd then see a lot of adoption you'd see a lot of relieved traffic on the freeway. Maybe not for work, because that's a lengthy commute for work, but it definitely would change a lot of families' plans for their weekend trip to go shopping at City Creek, something like that. So personally, I'd like to see that. That's not going to happen. What's going to happen instead is the Senate President saying we should double track Frontrunner, which means you can have trains running simultaneously along the same route, whereas right now it has to be one in one direction, one in the other direction. Or sometimes two in one direction, two in the other direction. Double tracking would allow basically trains to just be running all the time. So instead of a train coming by every hour or every half an hour at certain high capacity times or high traffic times, a train would come by every 25 to 30 minutes all day long, period, whether it's Tuesday or Saturday. That's one of the proposals as an example. The counter on that is you have a lot of lawmakers responding to the Senate President saying this money needs to go towards roads. We have bridges that are falling apart that are going to be more heavily used as population grows. We have roads that are too thin. Here in Cache Valley, you all probably know one or two roads that maybe even you take on a daily basis that should maybe have a bit more of a shoulder, a bit more of an emergency lane, or maybe a painted median at least, instead of a double line with, hundreds of cars a day at 55 miles an hour. Those types of things are going to be battled out when it comes to this. So that's one of the priorities that I think is going to take up the most time in the legislative session. The only thing that might supersede it is water. Discussions and debate over bills regarding water, water development, water conservation, all that stuff. Otherwise, I think how to spend the infrastructure money and how that interacts with the state budget. Because remember, as they're deciding how to spend this federal money, they also are deciding how the state budget is going to look, and the two are very connected. In fact, if we can pay for a lot of things with this federal money this year, they're going to make the state budget smaller to beef up the rainy day fund and more. So that's going to be the dominant issue and the one to watch during the legislative session. But we do have now a whole list, about 150 bills with titles and text. And I'm just going to run through some of them so you get an idea of what lawmakers are individually planning to do this legislative session. That's coming up right after this here on KVN News for the People.
The Riverwoods Conference Center is the center in Cache Valley for business, entertainment, and special events. Whether you're hosting a large or small event, you have the choice of inside with all the new modern interior renovations or outside along the scenic banks of the beautiful Logan River. The Riverwoods is an ideal choice, offering seamless planning, easy catering coordination, and will make your event as professional or as beautiful as desired. To book your next event or for more info, visit theriverwoods.com or call 435-750-5151. We'll see you at the Riverwoods.
If you have an aging loved one who could use a little extra help, you may wonder how much help is needed. Legacy House of Logan may be what you're looking for. Their different levels of care can accommodate your loved one no matter his or her needs, from daily tasks like dressing and bathing and medical administration to more advanced care for those with dementia. Legacy House of Logan offers all the comforts of home with a caring staff who really know how to take care of your loved ones. We invite you to stop by and see if Legacy House of Logan is right for your loved one on 1400 North in Logan.
What if the second deadliest cancer in men and women could be prevented? Would you try to avoid the pain? And what if you could protect yourself without leaving your home? Colorectal cancer is highly preventable. Screening is important, safe, and most people have options. Ask your doctor which screening test is right for you. Learn more from the Colorectal Cancer Alliance at getscreened.org.
Vehicle accidents are stressful enough. You don't need someone showing up at the scene trying to pressure you into letting them tow away your vehicle. Call your roadside assistance provider or insurance company for towing company suggestions, or consult with police on the scene. And always have the price and terms in writing before you let them hook it up. If you suspect fraud, call us at 1-800-TEL-NICB or visit www.nicb.org. A public service message from the National Insurance Crime Bureau.
These are the sounds of a dinner that almost didn't happen. A dinner now served thanks to people like you. Due to COVID-19, 17 million more Americans may face hunger. Feeding America is helping our neighbors in need. And if you're able, you can too. Donations are being accepted at feedingamerica.org/coronavirus. Brought to you by the Ad Council and Feeding America, 200 food banks strong.
Welcome back to KVN News for the People. About 150 bills unveiled over the last 48 hours here in Utah. There will be more over the weekend, so if you'd like to keep an eye on this, I've posted some useful links to certain pages within the legislative page, which is le.utah.gov. That are great places to you can actually set up a tracker, so anytime a certain lawmaker opens a new bill file, which they have up until about the end of February to do. Some of them do it later than that, even though there's an agreement, unwritten agreement that they shouldn't. Some of them can't help themselves every year. So it's a good way to track what lawmakers are working on, but it also gives you a good sense of where things are going, what are the most important priority issues, if you will, from certain areas of the state. So give you some examples here. We'll just run through them. So Senator Lincoln Fillmore has opened a bill file today on tax exemptions for certain business supplies. It's a very detailed list, and sometimes I see bills like this and I think, okay, who came to him with this? This is obviously for a specific business, and for better or worse, he's running it. So we'll see where that goes. Majority Leader in the House of Representatives, Mike Schultz, has a bill on incentives for certain retail operations. This is an interesting one because this bill prohibits a public entity from making or entering into an agreement to make certain incentive payments related to retail facilities after a specific date. That's very specific. This is a bill that is addressing an incident of some kind, and I want to know what the incident was. I don't remember this being reported, but somebody somewhere rented something for retail and then was offered a sort of incentive, a kickback for doing so at the time they did, and this is a bill banning that practice in retail in Utah. I would love to hear the gossip on this one. Representative Ballard filed a bill today on power of attorney. This is also an interesting example of why we shouldn't be afraid every time we see, lawmakers passed 400 bills. This is a bill that basically amends some provisions related to the nomination of a conservator or a guardian and power of attorney. It makes some technical changes that are along the lines of, basically the courts came back to the legislature and said, look, we've got some problems with certain language in statute. If it gets kind of legalese, but if a principal executes power of attorney and a petition is filed to appoint a conservator to the principal's estate at the same time, the courts didn't know what to do. And so it's a bill that basically says, well, here's what the courts should do. And, of course, lawyers were consulted left and right on this one, but it wasn't clear in statute. And that's a great example of what the majority of the work for the next 45 days, starting on Tuesday, will be about. Representative Timothy Hawks, Republican in the House, filed a bill to create the Great Salt Lake account. This is a technical procedure that has to be done because the legislature plans to put $50 million aside for efforts and research into saving and restoring the Great Salt Lake, something that the water experts believe will take years after last summer's drought. By the way, same with Lake Powell. No effort to save Lake Powell. It will likely save itself, but if you expect the water levels to be back up where we've been used to them being there next year, you're going to be surprised. It will take years for incoming water, especially as that Colorado River has shrunk itself. It's going to take years for that to replenish to a consistent level like that again. Karen Main, Democrat in the Senate, filed a bill to expand taxpayer credits in certain situations. This has been a popular issue here in Utah, back and forth, and surprisingly, they kind of kicked the can on this one. I thought they would. Honestly, I thought Republicans would be chomping at the bit for this one in an election year, but it's a Democrat that's running it, and it basically will expand eligibility for taxpayer tax credit when the taxpayer is filing jointly or the taxpayer spouse. And it's the calculation of the Utah personal exemption. The legislature for a long time has believed that needed to be expanded, but they just seem to would run out of time for it every year. So Senator Iwamoto has filed a bill to make permanently allowing that's it. Senator Iwamoto has filed a bill.
One of those days.
Senator Iwamoto has filed a bill to make permanent the allowing of 19-year-olds to work in correction settings. Interestingly enough, in Utah, to work in the correction system, you have to be 21 years or older, and there has been a pilot project with reducing that age, first to 20 and now to 19. This is still a pilot project, so don't expect a whole slew of new job openings in corrections for 19-year-olds, but they're seeing how it's going. This comes as a request from the Utah Corrections Division saying, we're suffering the same staffing issues everyone else is right now. We have a labor shortage ourselves. Representative Musselman, a Republican in the House, has filed a bill on zoning and community correctional centers, basically laying out, this is going to be a controversial one, laying out where they can and can't go. Musselman also has a bill hoping to undo a bit of something Senator Scott Sandel did in 2020, which is the state kind of walking over itself on their whole local control rhetoric. The state that year basically told counties you can't restrict these large, sometimes international agricultural businesses, companies, if they say want to do a large chicken, beef, or hog farm in your county. Certain counties had made some rules that it couldn't be within 10 miles of downtown or within 10 miles of the most outward building that resided within the county. It had to be out in unincorporated areas. Well, and you can see why they do that. Smells, traffic, pollution in water systems and things like that. The state stepped in at the request of the large corporations and said that counties can't do that. So there's a challenge to that coming this year via a bill Musselman has sponsored. Back to House Majority Leader Mike Schultz, a Republican in the House, second in command in the House. He also has a bill to give free admission to state parks to veterans, not just at certain times forever if you're a veteran, free admission to state parks. Representative Watkins has a bill on sales tax refunds for certain types of equipment purchases, specifically equipment that has to do with better health or healthier lifestyles. You would actually get a sales tax rebate on your annual tax filing if you bought any kind of equipment for your home or your personal life, that including a Fitbit, an exercise bike, all of that stuff. And one of the most interesting, sponsored by Republican Representative Stephen Handy, who is a conservative representative from the South Salt Lake area, roughly. He has a bill that would allow air pollution to be listed as a cause of death or a contributor to death on a death certificate. He said the reason he wants to do this is that he feels we are not doing a good enough job of tracking the health impacts of air pollution here in Utah. We know from scientific research it's bad for us, but just how bad for us? And Representative Handy says that speaking with doctors and researchers at the University of Utah Health, he believes Utah may be seeing an uptick in heart-related deaths, in stroke-related deaths, in respiratory deaths that are tied to some sort of respiratory disease or ailment. And he says we are seeing an uptick in those outside of, even the deaths from respiratory issues that are related to COVID-19. And he said he believes, and everyone believes, that it's probably because of air pollution. But where it can't be listed as a contributor on a death certificate, we really don't have the data. So Representative Handy says he'd like to change that. This is just a snapshot of some of the bills that have been opened so far and gives you an idea of what will be going on for 45 days starting next Tuesday on Capitol Hill as the legislative session gets underway. About 150 bills unveiled today. We'll talk about some of the more hot-button bills, including a proposed tax cut for Utahns on the income tax that now has 3 different competing versions from 3 different lawmakers. That's after these headlines with KVNU's Bill Walter.
Thank you, Jason. KVNU News Time is 5:42, and the news is brought to you by the Duck Hunter. While Utah has averaged 9,564 new coronavirus positive tests every day for the last week, today's new case count since Wednesday, 12,990, is another new record for cases in a 24-hour period during the pandemic. Included in the Utah Department of Health Thursday report are 414 new cases in northern Utah. And since the beginning of the pandemic, Utah has seen a total of 739,206 positive cases. Children in grades K through 12 account for 3,007 of the new cases announced today, which is 23% of all new cases. Since Wednesday, 7 more Utahns died of COVID-19, and from the start of the pandemic, the lives of 3,943 Utahns have been lost to the virus. That includes 197 in Cache, Box Elder, and Rich counties. There are now 98,665 individuals in northern Utah who are totally vaccinated, and 211,645 total doses have been administered in the Bear River Health District. 2 teens are dead. A third is critically injured after a shooting on a sidewalk. This occurred in West Valley City. Police say the shooting stemmed from a dispute between 2 groups of students associated with different schools. More than one person was taken into custody, but police did not immediately say how many. Hunter High School and 3 other schools were placed under shelter-in-place protocols due to the shooting, but those were later lifted. Their exterior doors were secured and no one was allowed on or off school campuses. The investigation also closed several roads in the area of Mountain View Corridor. And an investigation has found that Utah police made several unintentional mistakes when they stopped Gabby Petito and her boyfriend before she was killed in what became a high-profile missing persons case. The independent report released Wednesday examines a stop by police in Moab on August 12th. They allowed the couple to leave after requiring them to spend a night apart. Body camera video of a visibly upset Petito was widely viewed as the investigation unfolded and raised questions about whether a more robust police response could have prevented her death. KVNU News Time is 5:44.
Does your home have that stuffy winter smell? John at the Duct Hunter says it could be your air ducts holding on to dust and other surprises. To get rid of that smell, give John a call at the Duct Hunter. He'll thoroughly clean each duct in every room. Not with a shop vac, but with forced air and a vacuum that will make your mom proud. He can even run a camera through your vents to see what's going on. For a free consultation, call the Duct Hunter at 770-4813.
We are the Duct Hunter. Breathe better, save money, protect your home. We are the Duck Hunter.
KVNU weather is brought to you by Roof Rescue. Most of us don't think about our roofs until we see shingles on the ground or water drips through the ceiling. Keep your roof in tip-top shape by working with Roof Rescue. They'll take the time to assess, explain, and work out financial obligations with your insurance. Roof Rescue, providing watertight peace of mind. Partly cloudy this evening, then mostly cloudy. Haze this evening, patchy fog after midnight, low near 20. And then partly cloudy, patchy morning fog, high temperature tomorrow in the lower 30s. It was 34 today. Right now it's 31 at KVNU. For more details on these and other stories, visit CashValleyDaily.com.
Beaver Mountain will be holding the Do the Mountain ski and snowboard race this Saturday, January 15th. Registration will take place in the morning in the lodge from 8:45 to 10:45 with a $10 entry fee. Race will start at 11 a.m. on Tiny Tim. This year there'll be lots of prizes given away, including a snowboard from Pepsi of Logan and a pair of skis from Beaver Mountain. Again, you can register the morning of from 8:45 to 10:45 with a $10 entry fee. Plan to come on up to Beaver Mountain Saturday, January 15th and do the mountain.
This is the Sean Hannity Show.
And when the Taliban was on the march, he could have just hit them with airstrikes, pushed them back, expedited the withdrawal while we had control of Kabul, gotten out every American, every Afghan ally, all of our military equipment. Well, we didn't know this would happen in 11 days. You should have known, because the Taliban was on the march since the month of March.
Sean Hannity, weekday afternoons from 1 to 4 on News Talk KVNU.
This was a horrible story to watch play out today, and it's not really done playing out. Not a lot of additional information yet as well, but you probably saw breaking news throughout the day, or heard breaking news throughout the day of a shooting. First reported as at a high school in Utah. After that, quickly corrected to near a high school, Hunter High School.
Yeah, I couldn't figure out, was it right in front, or was it a little ways away from it?
West Valley City Police are saying that it was at an intersection that leads to the school. They're not clear about how far away that intersection is from the school itself, but it's apparently an intersection with a stoplight, or near an intersection with a stoplight that is a route into the school or school parking lot. So how close it was, I don't know. They're not saying, but an update from West Valley City Police about 30 minutes ago that just, I don't know, this. So a fourth and they believe final suspect is in custody in the shooting of 3 juveniles outside of Hunter High School in West Valley City. And this is the part that just, I don't know, just kind of stopped me. From the tweet from West Valley City Police, the suspects are males aged 14, 14, 14, and 15. The tweet goes on to say a motive is not yet confirmed. However, it appears that a dispute between two groups escalated into an altercation and ultimately a shooting. 14 years old and 15 years old, these four individuals.
Wow.
Yeah. You can't see something like that and not think something is very wrong. What are 14-year-olds doing out there in the first place, armed, at school, I assume? What possibly could they have been arguing about in which this seemed like a good way to resolve for four people, for four individuals, a good way to resolve the situation? We've really got to grapple with this in some way. Again, this doesn't sound, from what we know, it doesn't sound like a typical, and it's so disgusting I have to say typical, really, but a typical school shooting situation. It sounds like this is a different beast, but still ages 14, and 15. These are kids, children, shooting each other. Whew. Anyway, we'll be back right after this.
Jessup Insurance would like to invite you to attend a friendly, no-pressure, no-cost educational Medicare 101 meeting Wednesday, January 19th. Get to know Jessup Insurance as they guide you through Medicare, simplifying the entire process, all while enjoying a yummy dessert. Wednesday, 7 p.m., January 19th at Jessup Insurance. Call 213-3200. That's 213-3200 to reserve a seat.
Jessup Insurance and Retirement Services. Let us guide you.
UNI Furniture is excited to be going back to the furniture market in Las Vegas. After taking the last couple of years off, the furniture market is back on, and UNI is expecting to buy lots of inventory direct from the manufacturers. So in anticipation, UNI has gotten aggressive with their in-store discounts during their January clearance. Sofas, loves, chairs, sectionals, dining room, bedroom, and mattresses are all on sale. This January clearance features discounts on all home decor and accents too. It all adds up to just another reason there's always a better buy at UNI Furniture, downtown Logan.
Ah, that's better. Trade in the stresses of building a new home for relaxation. Visionary Homes Priority is giving you a stress-free building experience. Named the best home builder in northern Utah, Visionary Homes team will guide you seamlessly through the home building process. Call today, 435-228-4702, or visit visionaryhomes.com to learn more about upcoming communities in Nibley, Logan, and Smithfield. Visionary Homes, built for living, built for you.
Took my crashed up Chevy to Mako. Look at it now.
After my accident, Mako fixed my BMW. Handled insurance, rental car, it was easy. That's why customer satisfaction is so high.
So choose Mako for collision. And if you need repairs, check out Mako now.
Do you have damage from the recent snowstorm? Mako Collision Repair and Auto Painting Centers can help. Mako guarantees the repairs and will get you back on the road fast. If you're paying for the repair yourself, Mako can save you up to 33% compared to other body shops and dealers. Bring your snow-damaged car to Mako today.
Welcome back to KVN News for the People. Kind of got thrown off my roll there by that tweet from West Valley City Police about the shooters being age 14, and 15. That's a striking thing to read. Anyway, back on to what we had planned, just running through some of the bills that have been opened by lawmakers over the last 3 days. They've just been coming left and right. To give you at least a snapshot, Utah House of Representatives released today what they're calling the policy pillars. This is a really weird thing, but in a way, I kind of hope they keep doing this because it gives you at least a sense. And just as all things in the sausage-making process, it's a bit of a smokescreen because we do still have issues here in Utah with lobbyists and industry leaders being really cozy with lawmakers and being real easy for them to get time, but for residents to not. Those are issues, and those are always going to be issues. It'll never be fully resolved. But so a lot of this is something to put out to the public that says, here's what's important to us. But also don't pay too much attention to these 99 other things we're going to be doing kind of behind the scenes, because you can't pay attention to everything, right? And that's unfortunate. But this does give us a sense of where at least the House of Representatives is headed in this legislative session. So the policy priorities are as such. No surprise, number one, water. That is going to be the biggest debate. Again, I say it's going to be a tie between water and what to do with all this money, federal and state revenue dollars that they have to spend. So those are going to be the two dominant debates of the legislative session. But water is listed as the Utah House of Representatives leadership pillars, policy pillars. So what they're saying there basically is that this is one of the most important issues for us, and that's going to involve bills that are aimed at conservation, bills that are aimed at preservation, and that's a direct reference to things like algae blooms, polluted riverways, toxic minerals that have built up in certain southern Utah rivers around mining interests and things like that. So that's part of the preservation part of it. And then what this means, I don't know, but the third part of the pillars of policy that Utah House Republicans put out today when it comes to water is optimize. And this is going to be interesting because it does get a bit specific. For a buzzword-heavy PowerPoint that you would maybe expect at a business conference that you'd overpaid for a bad lunch and some cliche advice, it gets very specific. And here's what it has to say. So when it comes to water use in Utah, under the theme of optimizing, which is, according to this document, a top priority when it comes to water in this upcoming legislative session, they're going to use some ARPA funds, the American Rescue Act, passed by the Biden administration in, I think it was March of 2021. They still have that money to spend. And so they're going to use some of that to replace, upgrade, repair, and extend the life of essential drinking water infrastructure in many rural communities. So this can be used in many different ways. This is on top of the infrastructure money coming. So that's probably a pretty creative use of that, and does go towards improving quality of life, which is what the Rescue Act funds were mainly for. So here's what it says. It says they want to take the money available through federal funds coming in, infrastructure bill, and existing American Rescue Act funds they haven't spent yet, and state coffers as well, the surplus that they have, revenue where they can find it. And they want to, quote, invest in rural Utah by providing Utah's farmers and ranchers with new tools to maximize the efficiency of agricultural water use while maintaining current production levels and replacing and upgrading essential drinking water infrastructure in those same rural communities. That's a pretty lofty goal. And the document points out that 75% of Utah's water use is going to agriculture. Now, here's where things are going to get controversial. In this optimized water use priority put out by Utah House Republican leadership today, there's also a reference to being smarter about our agriculture. And referenced in that is just a brief in-passing reference to the types of crops we grow, specifically alfalfa. Now, that's going to be an interesting debate if this comes up, because if there are going to be incentives to get people, think of a family farm that's growing a lot of alfalfa, and the state's going to now offer them some kind of, this is all hypothetical, by the way. Don't call your lawmaker and scream at him yet. Maybe you'll want to later, but right now this is all a hypothetical coming from me only. But if the suggestion is the state might incentivize people to move away from certain water-intensive crops that maybe shouldn't be grown as much, at least in a desert state, and alfalfa would top that list. That's going to be interesting because a couple of questions on that. What's the incentive? What do they grow instead? What does this do for, there's still a lot of people that use alfalfa, in a circular fashion. They grow it, sell a lot of it, but then use a lot of it themselves to keep their dairy herd fat. How does that work? If the state's incentivizing people to move away from alfalfa, are they also going to unintentionally incentivize people to move away from large dairy herds? I mean, they would have to be really careful about this. So expect this to be maybe a multi-year process. I doubt they'll knock this out in 45 days, but very interested to see that one in the list of what House Republicans here in Utah are calling the pillars of policy. If you'd like to see the document, I've posted a link to the download link shared today by the House Speaker on our Facebook page, and we'll keep an eye on this one. Dave Ramsey is next here on KVN.